Welcome back to the Rewind. I'm your host, Spencer Tracy. It is great to be back for episode 33. Let's dig into some more baseball. We got some fun topics today. I've uploaded some content too, so if you feel like you're out of the loop, be sure to follow the Rewind at the Rewind_pod on Instagram. Best way to follow along. I'm getting better with graphic design and all this fun stuff, so be on the lookout for that. Drop some really cool stuff. We can go over that in a bit. But we're going to talk some rookie contract signings. There's been a sea of guys who haven't even sniffed the big leagues that are getting guaranteed money close to the 100 millions. And we're going to talk about, is that good for baseball? Is that bad for baseball? Why is that happening? We're going to get into all of that. And then I'm going to highlight some teams that are swinging some good punches to start this season. And that we're not expected to be as fierce and as scrappy as they've shown. Now it is early, so there are some teams on the wrong side of 500 that you probably shouldn't hit the panic button yet. You know, I'm recording this April 8th. This will come out April 9th, so there's definitely no reason to panic if you're a fan of a team that's under 500 or really struggling. So let's talk some rookie contracts. So typically, right, you get drafted, you're in the minor leagues for a certain number of years, and you don't see someone get paid until they're called up to the big leagues, and they go through a couple years of like slowly getting more and more money. If you blow up really quickly, you may be guaranteed instead of $4 million the next year. But basically, it's just 1-year contracts unless an extension is given. More recently, over the last 5-10 years, you've seen people get maybe a little extension before they go through all 4 or 5 years of the arbitration process. But even more recently, like over the last couple seasons, especially this season, you've seen guys who are highly regarded prospects. So they've got a lot of potential. There's a lot of expectations. But they haven't been called up to the big leagues yet. And they're getting not just 2-3 year extensions. We're talking 6, 7, 8 year extensions for just below 100 million, some almost close to 150 million. And we've seen it with like the top stars after they make a debut, and maybe they come out of the gates hot, and they're like, okay, maybe this guy's the real deal. Let's lock him up before he gets too big, and now we're talking $300 million. But we're seeing guys do this. It's becoming common. We're seeing a lot of small market teams do it, not the Dodgers or some big city names. The Red Sox are probably the biggest city that have done it. They've locked up some of their big names. But I'm going to go to an article here by Baseball America, and it's a great article. And it looks like it was written by Matt Eddy, and he breaks down the top contracts of MLB players that have been that are prospects that haven't really sniffed the big leagues. The first one is Connor Griffin, the number one prospect coming into this year. He's been the number one prospect for a couple of years. 5 days of MLB service. So he's just been in the big leagues for 5 days. He's 19 years old, and he just inked a 9-year, $140 million contract. That just surpassed Corbin Carroll, outfielder for the Arizona Diamondbacks, who at 22 years old, 38 days, just over a month of MLB experience, signed an 8-year, $111 million contract. 3 years older. 22 is still pretty young. He's one of the few teenagers to ever get MLB experience. Bryce Harper's a big name. He's a guy who's done it. But just like the potential's off the roof. Connor Griffin pretty much does it all. Big dude, well over 6 foot, strong. He can hit for power. He stole almost 60 bases last season in the minor leagues. Great bat to ball, so he's a tremendous defender. He's already making diving catches out there in the field. Just you look at him and you're like, he's at the top of my lineup. This is a guy who's just going to be a stud. He's going to be a stud, right? So the eye test. Always listen to your gut. Always listen to your eyes. That'll tell you everything you know about a baseball player. And Connor Griffin has that. He's got the frame. He's got the power. He's got the speed, the versatility. Like he's got it. That's why they're so invested. And the numbers are just unbelievable. Corbin Carroll, same thing. First round pick. tore it up in the minors, came up in MLB, and just provided off the bat. We're like, give him money. Colt Emerson, the Seattle Mariners, third highest paid guy. He signed a $95 million contract for 8 seasons at 20 years old. He has not reached Major League Baseball. He's playing minor league baseball. Jackson Chourio. This happened a couple years ago as well, 2023. 19 years old. At age 19 years old, he signed a 8-year, $82 million contract. So starting to dip a little bit. This happened last year. And, of course, Chourio did not have any MLB service. Basayo last year, at 21 years old, signed an 8-year, $67 million contract. These are really cheap deals. He came up for 5 days and was tearing it up in the big leagues. They signed him. There's some other names on here like Cooper Pratt. Luis Robert did it in 2020. The White Sox did it with Eloy Jimenez, which didn't really pan out. Colt Keith. These guys are getting much like cheaper contracts. But it's wild. Like Connor Griffin, 19 years old. Colton Emerson, 20 years old, didn't touch the big leagues. Jackson Chourio, 19 years old, 21 years old. Like this is like you got to be pretty confident that these guys are going to produce when they get called up, and you're not really ready to like wait around for them to figure it out. Like some guys, give him some time. He'll grow and give him some experience at the dish facing some big league arms. People will tell you the jump from AAA to the big leagues is a pretty big step. Like it's not just like going to the next level. Some guys transition pretty seamlessly. Some guys it takes some time. It's hard to gauge. Like Jackson Holliday was the former number one overall pick by the Orioles and number one prospect for some time. He got called up very quickly because it wasn't even fair what he was doing in the minor leagues. And I think he rocked an 0 for 15 or something. Like he hit a huge slump when he got in. It's very different for different guys. But what worries me is when you get guys on these rookie contracts, they're like less than $1 million when they're coming up. Like they're on these rookie contracts. They're cheap. And you have some time. You go through the arbitration process. There's some renewal years before they hit arbitration. And then after they finish arbitration, if they're not given an extension, then they hit that free agency market. But that's not till like 28, 29. It depends on when you get called up and all that service time stuff. But you have until close to 30. So they have a couple years to kind of get going. And when you sign that contract, you automatically start to pile on those, $8 million a year, $10 million a year, however much they're making, depending on whether they're signing for $100 million, $60 million, $50 million, whatever it is. So you're automatically tacking on that money to your player's salary, which adds up over time. So you're kind of hoping he produces. However, if he does produce, you may be getting this Connor Griffin, this Colt Emerson guy who's raking at 22, 23 years old, or if you're in Connor's eyes, 20 years old, 19 years old, who's producing at this super high level at a very young age, but instead of getting for what he's worth at a value of maybe 20, 30 million a year, you gambled early, and now you're only paying this player 5 to 15, maybe 10 million a year. So you're saving a good amount of money, which you can go get in a free agent market that's quickly rising. Like this offseason, a lot of teams were quiet, like the Giants, and a lot of fans were upset because the market was so big, right? Because if you're an average player, but if you're the best option in free agency, you can ask for a lot more, right? Because you don't have those elite guys who are asking for a ton, and therefore now you have to kind of fit in. And instead of getting 20 million, now you're getting like 12, 15. So all that market stuff really it changes, and if free agents are going to be more expensive, to have these young superstars that really like team friendly deals is super pivotal, especially for teams who aren't willing to give Kyle Tucker, $30 million deferred for the next 8 years. Shohei Ohtani's getting $40 million from like 2040 to 2050 or 2030 to 2050, right? They're only paying a couple million, but later on they're going to pay him a lot more. So it's really risk. It's how much confidence do you have in your guys. It works out for guys like Jackson Chourio, who's tearing it up at such a young age. It's working out for guys like Ronald Acuna, who signed an early contract as well. So time will tell, but it's really interesting. Now the next question is it good for baseball? What do you think it is? Like, just think about it. Everything I just broke down. Do you think this is good for baseball? Personally, I think so. Because we're in this big argument right now about the Dodgers are throwing a ton of money at all these all-stars and immediately boosting their roster well above. They're already favorites. They're back-to-back champs, and they go out and get the best hitter in Kyle Tucker in the free agency market. Oh, they go and get Roki Sasaki and Yamamoto in the international pool too. Like, they're stealing all this talent, and they can afford it, and they can afford to add while all of these teams are being savvy. Once they have to start paying guys, they flip them for young prospects and start building over with these young studs again, keeping one or two throughout the decade of young guys that they get, and kind of trying to build around those guys. You see teams like the Guardians do it. Cleveland, big city, right? So is it good for? I think so. Because one thing these small markets are really good at, the Guardians are a pitching lab. Pitchers have known to excel once they touch soil in Cleveland. And there's something about struggling somewhere else and going that the Tampa Bay Rays is another great example. The Milwaukee Brewers are a great factory there for development. And these guys don't spend a lot of money, but what they do is they invest in their coaching. They invest in their development. And that allows these teams to produce all these guys like a Caleb Durbin or Isaac Collins, guys who are now just like, whoa, this team won the division after selling their big ace back-to-back seasons in Corbin Carroll and Freddie Peralta, and they've got these guys no one's heard of getting Rookie of the Year votes, and they weren't even like top prospects. Like, these guys aren't coming up just blowing up the minor leagues. They're just playing their version of baseball, and they're fitting this roster so well around the stars, and that allows them to excel at this level. And so I think it's great for baseball because now you allow teams to better their roster without having to blow up their player salary, right? If you're a team who doesn't want to spend a ton of money like the Dodgers do, which a lot of teams do, and you want to invest in, even if it's not even investing in development, you just want to be an affordable club. You can now do that if you make the right picks with your prospects, if you make the right trades when acquiring prospects and assets like that. If you do that correctly and you develop them into a player that really excites you for the next 10 years, and you think they're like one more year in the minors away from doing so, you can throw that price. Now, the player has to agree with it. This isn't just throw it on. You have to say yes. They have to agree to it. There are some negotiation, things. So you could do it in the minor leagues, or you could do what the A's did, which is after a year, Jacob Wilson came in second behind Nick Kurtz in the Rookie of the Year voting. He hit over 300. He looked really good. Nick Kurtz looked awesome. Now you can throw that price tag on. And instead of waiting a couple years for the extension to really have to be kick in where it's do or don't, you can get them. It's going to be a little bit pricier depending on how much they explode, like a Nick Kurtz or a Jacob Wilson. But if you get them early, like a Colt Emerson or a Connor Griffin, where they're just like teenagers, like 19, 20, maybe 22, you can get them for a bit cheaper. You can get that 8-year for like 80, 50 million. So I think it's great to be able to allow you to better your roster and not have to spend as much money. So instead of adding a player for $400 million over 7 or 8 years, like the Blue Jays did with the Dylan Cease, the bullpen, their rotation got better with a great arm like Dylan Cease. But now your options of acquiring for the next 7 years with that contract, and you also played Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Well over 9 figures. Now it becomes tougher to add, and you're a little bit more handcuffed. Whereas if you have these superstars that are on these team-friendly deals, you can expand a little bit and feel good where he's at. You may have to pay him, once he hits year 29, year 30, but that's like 7 or 8 years in the future, and he's fully developed by that point. So you do also know what you're getting. Maybe he's a role player you want to keep him for cheaper, or maybe he's a guy you really have to stay long term. So you can bite that bullet when you get there. And if you're one of a team, if your team like the Rays or the Guardians or the Brewers, you can now flip that and get some more assets back and do the whole process again and just build your team around really young players under team-friendly deals for a long time and see what kind of dynasty run, what kind of runs you can make out of it. So I think it's really good for baseball, and I think that's gonna benefit some teams like these small market teams to really allow themselves to compete with teams that are big spenders, like the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Red Sox, teams that are more willing to write a blank check. So let me know what you guys think. Extensions for players who haven't reached the major league level versus who have just touched the surface in the major league level with just like a year or less than a year of playing time. Is there a difference? Do you like it when you have? Do you think you should only be doing it when you get playing time, when you're in the majors, or should you be allowed to do it whenever? It's your money, it's your choice. So I'm very curious to hear it. That's kind of my take on it. I think it's good for baseball. It allows teams to compete for cheaper money, which is going to be big. I will before I switch topics. I do think one of the reasons this is happening is because of the CBA. The Players Association has an agreement with the owners and MLB, and they have some rules about like salary cap, luxury tax, how much you can pay players, when's a max contract. All these rules come into play. This is where they make all these rules, and that ends in 2026. So typically that will result in a lockout because the players are going to want a lot of benefits that the owners are probably not going to want to give, and the owners are going to want some standards that the players are going to deem too low. So getting these guys on the same page is just not going to work. And so there's a chance there's a lockout, and with all these new rules, it could really hurt how teams are allowed to obtain their players. And so to get these contracts out and done early may help them. It may be easier to get contracts done now versus in 2026, 2027, or 2027. This is 2026. So I think there's a little bit of fear in that unknown, and teams are kind of protecting, and they're willing to take that risk of adding a young kid like him to do so. And plus, while that negotiation is going on, there's no agreement, so there's no free agency, there's no practice facilities for players, there's no team, there's no contracts, there's no extension talks or contract talks. So it gets a little murky in that sense. And so that's kind of where we're at. So let's take a quick break. I'm going to break down a couple teams that have really surged and have caught the league by notice. All right, welcome back. Let's get into our next segment. I think this is going to be a fun one. Let's dive in. We're going to go to the St. Louis Cardinals. I'm going to call this segment, by the way, everyone starts 0-0. Bottom tier teams that are brought the gloves and are in the ring and they're fighting. Everyone starts 1-0. Just because you're predicted to have a bad year does not mean you start the year 10 games under 500. And just because you're a World Series favorite, you don't get to start 5-0, 10-0. And the Cardinals are making the most of it. A team that was counted out. They traded Sonny Gray this offseason. And they're taking money. When teams trade a contract, and part of the negotiation of the receipt of the opposite end, the second party receiving that player is usually a red flag would be they cost a lot. So the teams giving up a player will sometimes be like, okay, I'll pay 5 of his $20 million or 10 of his $20 million, and you can have him. And so some teams will take that as a way to get that money off their books. But that becomes dead money because now you're paying a player to play against you. So that's kind of how that happens. The Cardinals didn't do that not once, but twice. And usually that means you're going to kind of eat it for a couple years or a year, and then make your push when you have that contract and the player just completely off the books. Sonny Gray was traded to the Boston Red Sox, and he had a $31 million contract. The Cardinals are paying Sonny Gray $20 million of that $31 million. They only have to pay the Red Sox only have to pay him $11 million this year. They gained some prospects. Sometimes you can get some more prospects, some more value in prospects for that as well. So they did that, which was like they're jumping ship here. They also traded Nolan Arenado, which they've been trying to do for like almost 2 seasons now. They tried to do it last year, it didn't work out. He's been falling off ever since they added him in during the COVID 2020 season from the Rockies. They're paying him $31 million of his $41 million on his contract. So they're paying him so that's $51 million to 2 players that aren't on the team anymore. They also got some prospects back for him, which again, trading assets for prospects is another sign that you're just kind of throwing in the towel. Then they traded Brendan Donovan, who was rumored in multiple trade talks. It almost seemed like it wasn't going to happen as we drew closer to the regular season, but he was finally shipped off to Seattle up north. And Brendan Donovan, an awesome bat-to-ball guy, just a 300 hitter, utility guy, and he can sneak in some pop in there, but that's not really his place. But his defense, not only does he play around the infield and even in the outfield, but he plays defensively at a very high level at all those positions. He's best at second base, which is where his home will be for the Seattle Mariners, maybe even some third base. But they trade him for some prospects as well. But his contract was ready to rise as well. So you're like, all right, this team's out of it. The Cubs are probably the favorite. The Reds are taking steps forward. They look good. The Pirates were buying all offseason. They look like they're going to make a push. The Cardinals are clearly the team to fall into last place. Nope, not the case. Not the case. Let me introduce you to a good friend. His name is Jordan Walker. Jordan Walker is finally putting some smiles on people's faces. He has come up the system as this massive threat in the batter's box. Big time power hitter. Just absolutely tearing the cover off the baseball. He hits the ball hard. He hits it consistently. And he is just a walking home run with his power. Extra base hit power. Just this big dude. And again, what I tell you, the eyes and the gut tell you everything. 6'6", 250. This is a big specimen when he steps in the box. But he has not been playing to his standard at all. He has been very head-scratching. He's been frustrating ever since they called him up in 2023. He hit 276 his rookie year with 16 bombs, right? This is what I'm talking about. This is only 104 strikeouts in 400 plate appearances. So he's not really striking out. Not a very good defender, but the pop's there, and he's getting on base. 2024 falls off. He hits just a tick over 200 with just 5 bombs. Probably going up and down. Next season, gets a little bit more love. Gets 360 plate appearances, just 6 home runs, and a 215 average. Just not putting it together. This year, he leads the league in home runs. He's got 5 home runs in 12 games, and he is hitting the covers off this ball. If you're a fan who caught his ball this year, you cannot read the stamp that says Major League Baseball, official Major League Baseball on the cover. And if you've been to spring training or you've seen a Major League Baseball, you know what I'm talking about. Not only that, a 295 average. He's getting on base, a 367 on base percentage, and 12 RBIs. It's almost an RBI per game. He is on a heater, and I got to tell you, and he's only 23 years old. That's the best part about calling these guys up young is when they're struggling for a couple years, when they finally blossom, they're not 28, 29, and you got to decide if you want to pay them or not. They're perfect, 23 years old, 24 years old, and they're starting to rake, and they're starting to gain some confidence. And if you're the Cardinals fan, you've got to be psyched because you've been waiting for this guy to take over. But since you did not expect Walker to blow up like he has, you've had your eyes on another prospect, and that's J.J. Weatherholt, the 7th overall pick just a couple seasons ago out of West Virginia. The 23-year-old made his debut off the gun after a good spring training. I talked a little bit about him in my last episode, breaking down some rookie breakouts. But this guy's just been an on-base machine. He's hitting around 270 with a 364 on-base percentage. 8 walks and 11 Ks. That's a really good split. He's almost walking as much as he's striking out. But he has been a great bat-to-ball guy. He's playing second base. He's growing there. He could be another pre-arb extension candidate. That's what that means. The segment we were talking about earlier, that's pre-arb extension, because arbitration is when you have to start negotiation. You actually go to court. It's very interesting. But J.J. Weatherholt has been a big piece of this. And then, how about this? Anyone heard of this big first baseman, Alec Burleson? Well, you should. A 400 on-base percentage, bat-to-ball guy. He gives off this frame where it looks like he just absolutely hits bombs and maybe a big swing and miss guy. Not the case. 400 on-base percentage, 10 walks to 4 strikeouts. Alec Burleson just gets on 6 runs and 12 hits, 10 RBIs. He gets on base, he scores. He's a bat-to-ball nut. He is a guy you want up in the order because he gets on base and he's got some thickness to him, so he's got some pop. Don't leave it over to the plate too much because he'll smack it. And hey, even if you dot it up on the black on the corner or maybe even miss it off the plate, you want to give him the chase, he's still going to put the bat to the ball because he's that freaking good. Alec Burleson has been an on-base machine at this top of the order. And you got to love what he's doing with the rookie hitting around him. And then Jordan Walker's pop. You get those two guys who have got plus 360 on base clips. And then Jordan Walker's leading the league in home runs. Like, yeah, sign me up for that. So Walker, Weatherholt. Sorry, my nose is a little itchy. Walker, Weatherholt, Burleson raking offensively. That's how this team has helped to get 7-5. But when you hit, you got to pitch too. That's exactly what they're doing. Michael McGreevy, 25-year-old, UC Santa Barbara alumni, 2.16 ERA, just 2 walks in 16 and two-thirds innings pitched. Opponents are hitting just 183 against him. Man, he's just a strike thrower. I mean, he doesn't mess around. Only 10 Ks in 16 and two-thirds innings pitched. So he's not a swing and miss guy. He's just going to make you put it in play, and he's going to have Mason Wynn, J.J. Weatherholt, just good defensive backfield. He's got a great center fielder in Victor Scott in center field, who's just flying around center. Nathan Church in left. Just good defenders around him, and he knows that. And so he's going to use the other 7 guys behind him to get his outs, and it's worked. He's got a 2.16 ERA, so only 25 years old. He is throwing the ball well. Lots of things to like from that kid. At the top of the rotation. Just right next to him at the top of the rotation, a prospect who's really starting to fit in to his red and white threads, Matthew Liberatore, the southpaw lefty, a 3.38 ERA in 16 innings pitched. He's looked really good. He's kind of looked like the ace. I'm not sure if he's going to turn into that ace look moving forward. We still have to kind of wait. I want to see that dominant run. You know, you name every superstar. Every superstar goes on like a crazy run. How long it is will determine how big the hype is for you come award season at the end of the year. So I want to see that from Liberatore. Right now I see him as kind of like a really solid mid, maybe top-end starter. But is he the ace? Right now, maybe. But he could be a really good pairing with McGreevy looking forward. And if they kind of turn out to kind of even out they're not as dominant. Obviously, McGreevy's not going to finish with a 2.16 ERA. And if Liberatore can finish in the 3s and so with McGreevy, high 3s, like you add a really good arm to this rotation. You've got 3 awesome pitchers, maybe even 4. Let me get to my next guy, Andre Palante. This is another, just doesn't throw gas. Every guy nowadays throws 95 plus, 98, 100, just steam coming out of their arm when they're firing it across the plate. Not Andre Palante. Again, it's kind of this in-play, just use the defense, very Michael McGreevy-like. And it's worked for him. 1.8 ERA. He is just working for the bat. So he's using his defense. He's using that force out to his advantage. And minimizing runs like to a premium. 1 ERA is incredibly low. Not as much of a potential guy as McGreevy or Liberatore, but definitely a valuable asset for them moving forward. Maybe even flip at the deadline if the season kind of turns on them eventually. So we will see. And another final arm for the Cardinals is Riley O'Brien, a reliever. He's been nails out of the bullpen. Just the go-to guy come down the stretch, which is pivotal. You want a guy who has 7 in the third innings pitched and no runs and 6 Ks. No runs allowed for this guy in his 7 innings of work, more than 7 innings of work. But he can also strike you out, almost a strikeout per appearance, per inning, with 6 punch-outs. And then he works in the sinker as well, so he'll get that ground ball from time to time. But the great slider will get a lot of swings and misses. And Riley O'Brien out of the bullpen, you need a guy like that out of the bullpen. They might hold on to him. I'm not sure if he'll be traded, but it'll be interesting. So McGreevy, Liberatore, Palante, O'Brien, those guys studs so far. My concern for the Cardinals is they might be catching lightning in a bottle here. Because as much as I just hyped up those 4 guys, I'm going to have to bring them down a level here, these 3 guys. Michael McGreevy, I talked about him, ball and play. He's just been getting outs using his defense, a 183 batting average against. But the xERA, that is the expected ERA, given it takes into account defensive positioning, exit velocity, right? If you hit the ball really hard, like 100 miles an hour, but it's red second baseman, you don't get credit for a hit. But your expected batting average is probably pretty high. Or you got a lot of great defenders out there, like Victor Scott he flies everywhere. He's a super fast, this small outfielder, but he covers a ton of field at Busch Stadium. And a lot of those deep fly balls may be more expected to fall in most cases, given the average outfielder be out there and trying to catch all these balls. So his expected ERA is over 7, which if it's a couple points off, and by points I mean like if his expected ERA was like a 3.4, that's a little high. That's compared to his 2.16. It's a little high, but a 3.4, it's like, yeah, all right, he's still doing well. If you have a 2.16 ERA, that's what you have. But you were expected to get a 7 ERA based on the results given via all this data. That is alarmingly high and something that's a little concerning, especially if he's not walking guys. So it's not like he's walking guys and then these hard hit balls are just finding fielders and he's getting double plays. But he's just, I fear it's going to catch up to him a little bit, and that's what's going to bring his ERA back up to maybe what he's shown in the past, that 3.8, that 4 ERA. He could take a step forward. He could kind of figure it out and be more in the mid 3s. But I hope it doesn't get too bad to where we're like, now he's up in the 4s and it's June now. So now we've seen his true colors. We've seen it really catch up to him. So that's one thing that worried about me. Liberatore, same situation. 16 innings pitched. He's rocking a 3.3 ERA. So he's doing a pretty good job of not letting runs cross home plate. But 4 home runs allowed in his, I believe it's 2 or 3 starts. He's allowing some big swings, which means he's given up. He's given too many hangers, too much candy on the plate when getting that ball over the plate, and that could really hurt him in the long run too. Because if you come into a day and Liberatore doesn't have his best stuff, he's a little wild, he's not as accurate, the control isn't there. You walk a couple guys, and you have the threat. You're vulnerable to the big fly. That's going to result in a lot of big innings, and that gets you out of ball games real quick. And that brings us to my next point. Andre Palante, a 1.8 ERA, as I mentioned earlier, 7 walks in the 2 starts, just 10 innings of work. Just over 10 innings of work, but 7 walks. That's 7 free bags. That's not going to work. That means only 3 innings on average he hasn't walked a guy, which is it's really hard to operate when you're giving up free passes at that rate. And then guys are just going to be, cautious around you. They're not going to respect you to be able to throw strikes, and you might overcorrect it, and boom, a 2-0 count, you get a hanging off speed, or you get a slider that catches, or a fastball that's a little too over the plate, a little too up, and bam, then you get punished big time. That's my concern right there. Is McGreevy high ERA plus, Liberatore big home run threat, vulnerability, and Palante's just walking guys. So That's my one worry for them. But this is a scrappy team. This is a fun team. Really nothing to lose here. They trade away some assets. They're holding some money, but they're letting the guys play. And J.J. Weatherhold's awesome to watch as well. So the 7-5 Cardinals looking to continue their season. Let's go over to the next team. Let's go over to Miami. The Miami Marlins. Last year, the Marlins came onto the scene hot with a sweep, I believe, or they had a couple walk-offs to start the year, and the vibes were very high in Miami. And they kind of carried on throughout the season as the team was shockingly good. I think they won over 75 games or around there. It might have been even closer to 80. But they weren't supposed to be there, and they were a lot more competitive than you would have thought. And coming into the season, they traded Edward Cabrera for Owen Casey. Both sides have really liked the way that trade has worked out. But yeah, Owen Casey's got a 905 OPS and 29 ABs. So where this team is just playing as a team. This is a team's team. That's kind of stupid, but it's a team's team. And if you really think about it, I think you can kind of get where I'm trying to go there. They play so well. It's a fun built team. Like they've got some pop with some swing and miss in Owen Casey. They've got the power hitting catcher in Agustin Ramirez. They've got some other fun names that I'm gonna list here that are just popping off. And they got some guys who are like, who the hell is this? And they're hitting like 350. They're absolutely swinging the hell out of the sticks, and it just excites you. Like this team just has some good vibes. Let's dig into this. I can't hype them up anymore. Let's just get into what they're doing. First off, Sandy Alcantara is back. A couple years ago, he was getting Cy Young votes, and deservingly so. He was an absolute threat on the bump. Then he ran into TJ, came back after a year off, was not himself. Next season, wasn't really himself. Now, there was some trade rumors last year, some trade rumors in this offseason. Is he going to be a Marlin? They hung on to him, and it has paid off for the Marlins. How about an 0.79 ERA and a 24 and a thirds innings pitched? That is some elite stuff. He almost threw 2 Maddoxes. Now, Spencer, what is a Maddox? It is named after the great Greg Maddux, who was very well known for just getting outs at a premium early in counts and limiting runs doing so by kind of almost forfeiting the strikeout and just letting guys get themselves out via ground ball, fly out, quick outs with his various movements and slow speeds. And it is throwing a complete game shutout. That's 9 full innings and not allowing a run. And I believe it's less than 100 or 90 pitches. I believe it's 100 pitches. And he has done that the most, with the only person exceeding that being Greg Maddux. That's why they call it a Maddux. But no one has been able to touch that because he is so good at pitching. And that's why he's a pitcher. But he had the chance to do it for the first time since the early 2000s, last done by Greg Maddux, and back-to-back starts. So no one has done 2 back-to-back Maddoxes and back-to-back starts since the man himself in the early 2000s. It's been over 20 years. He had a chance to do it. He gave up 2 guys got on with 1 out in the 9th inning the other day, and they pulled him out. The Marlins actually ended up blowing that lead to the Reds, which was wild. But that's for another day. Sandy Alcantara is an absolute stud. 24 and a third innings pitched, 0.79 ERA, sub-8 with a 123 batting average against. No one is touching this guy. My next guy is someone I could not hype up anymore. If you're a fantasy baseball owner, it's going to be tough to get this guy now. Xavier Edwards is a superstar. He's such a superstar. A little older than 27, but he is a switch-hitting, low-to-the-ground infielder who plays elite defense. He's got 74%. He's 74 percentile in outs above average. Great defender, right up the middle with Otto Lopez. How about a 409 batting average? A 447 on-base percentage. Nearly 50% of the time he's getting on base. He walks. He puts the ball in play. He does not strike out. He's got 10 runs in 12 games. What is there not to like about this guy? He is the whole package. He doesn't go yard, which is fine given how productive he is at putting the ball in play, and he's got some speed. So he's almost like a better version of Luis Ariz. He's faster. He's a great defender, and he's just as good as balls in play. He's probably a candidate to win batting title. Xavier Edwards is a superstar in the making. There's nothing really about his game. He's just so fun to watch. He's so confident in the strike zone when you see him hitting. He knows when he needs to take. He knows what pitches he wants to hunt, what zones he's hunting. I'm not sure if he's a zone hunter, meaning he's cutting the plate into quadrants or halves, and once the ball enters that zone, he's attacking, or if he's more on speeds, where he's picking a speed, like a slow speed, a meteor. He's picking something to come into him, go out to him, and that's how he's matching up his approach. But whatever he's doing, it's working. The stats say it itself. He's not even a power hitting bat. He's got like a 900 OPS, which is ridiculous. Around 700, 750 is your average, 740, just to put that in perspective. But those are honestly the only two guys I'm going to highlight, because this whole team is just playing so well together. They have 5 hitters in the first 10 games. They have 5 hitters with 10 games played who have an OPS above 860. Again, the average is about 140, maybe 150. That's 120 points higher than the average OPS. They've got 5 hitters. That's almost half their lineup. And some of those guys that aren't even on that are underperforming. Like there's good players on this team that are still underperforming. So they're playing so well. Edwards is one of them. Otto Lopez is another guy with an over 860 OPS. Liam Hicks is a catcher who's come out of nowhere. He's been crushing baseballs, man. He's hitting over 300, closer to 400. Owen Casey's another guy with a OPS over 860. And how about this name, Javier Sinoja? A corner outfielder who's just shredding in the box right now. He is seeing beach balls getting thrown at him. And just another smaller guy that just fits what they're doing. Speed, defense, contact. Using that big outfield to let their speed take over for those extra base hits, instead of having to force those power hitters to really get the ball over those outfielders' heads. It's a fun team to watch. They fight. They're 5th in runs scored when trailing. They're 4th in OPS when trailing. The only teams above them in OPS when trailing is the Dodgers, the Yankees, and you guessed it, the team I mentioned earlier, the St. Louis Cardinals. So they're just a scrappy team. They're a scrappy team. They're so good at home when coming back, and they're just a really fun watch. The 7-5 Marlins on the backs of Sandy Alcantara and a new superstar, Xavier Edwards. They're fun. They're a fun team to watch. They've got these glowing colors. Go check them out. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll do the last team real quick. All right, welcome back. Let's dig into my last team. Those are like the 2 big teams, the Cardinals and the Marlins, are the 2 big teams that I wanted to really emphasize, because I really love the way they're playing the game right now and based on their expectations. But I didn't really capture the Central. And I haven't really talked about the East, so I wanted to show them some love. The Tampa Bay Rays, they're back at Tropicana Field after the hurricane, where the field unfortunately, it was destroyed. The roof was blown off, and they had to do some remodels. So they had to play at their AAA. They had to play at Steinbrenner Field, which is the Yankees' spring training field and I guess it's close to Tampa, which makes sense. But they had to play the Yankees, basically minor league field, what the A's are doing. But this team, they're 5-7. They're on a tough skid right now. But the way they're playing ball is a little interesting. They're kind of matching other teams. They're matching other teams' skill sets, which isn't really great. But if you look at their schedule, their games are kind of like blowouts, or no, I shouldn't say that. Their games are really like they're losing 3-2 or they're losing like 7-8. They're winning 9-8-7 or they're winning 2-1. So it's kind of interesting how they match up with it. They've got some blowouts recently because they're kind of hitting a skid, but I kind of like it. Like I kind of like what they're doing here. They just need to get a little more consistent. And I think that's going to come from the pitching side of things. But I cannot go this episode without talking about this guy named Chandler Simpson. Some of you already know. Chandler Simpson came up in the minor leagues he came up last year, 24-year-old. He's 25 now. 5'11", 170. Very skinny, short guy. But he flies. He's just so fast. By far the fastest player in Major League Baseball right now. Like Billy Hamilton speed. He is a absolute speedster. Needs to work on the defensive side a little bit, which is weird because he's usually a really fast center fielder. Is like really good, but there's some kinks he's got to make there. He just puts the ball in play, and he flies everywhere. Chandler Simpson this season, kind of that, and he's a huge threat on the bases. Obviously, in 12 games, he has 18 hits. One of them is an extra base hit, and it's a triple. He connected on one ball. It wasn't strong enough to go over the fence, but it was strong enough for him to round it 3 bases or 2 bases. A 391 average, 426 on base percentage, 435 slug, and an 864 OPS. Another guy whose OPS should not be that high because he's not a very extra base hit guy, but he's so fast. Again, I know I'm saying this a lot. You got to watch him play. And he's not getting sexy hits. You know, he's not hitting 112 sitting down on a curveball at his knees, ripping it to center field, taking a nice easy turn, to lead off the inning. He's bunting. He's getting jammed and hitting little two-hopper ground balls that just sneak over the pitcher's glove. The shortstop has to come in and then forcing these quick throws, but they have no chance. He literally he beat out a ground ball in less than 4 seconds. That's 90 feet. He hit a little jam shot. Even if you beat him and the ball's in the infield, the infielder has to rush the ball, cleanly field it, either with his glove and have to make a clean exchange into his throwing hand, or barehand it, cleanly barehand it. Most of the time when you barehand a ball, you can't pick it up like with a four-seam grip. Who picks up a ball with 3 fingers? You're gonna miss it. So you want to pick it up with your bare hand. So not all the time you have time to rearrange your fingers to get to that four-seam grip, and so you have to almost like palm it, which decreases your accuracy significantly. So the amount of pressure he puts on you is a ton, and he doesn't have to hit the ball very hard. He has more walks than strikeouts. He has 3 walks and 2 strikeouts. Very good bat-to-ball skills. But, like, with his speed, of course you're saying, like, I don't care if you never hit a ball 100 miles an hour. I don't care if you never hit a ball 80 miles an hour. Little bleeders into the outfield, little broken bat singles to the outfield, soft hits. Like, this is what you do. Just run everything out because you're so fast. And you can't strike him out. So he's like, you're going to have to deal with him. You're going to have to make a play 4 times every time he comes up to the plate. And when he does, he is a headache because he's got 5 stolen bases in those 12 games. And he's only been caught stealing once. He could steal like 60 bases. In the 109 games he played last year, 414 at-bats, he stole 44 bags. That's more times than he struck out last year, 43 times. So, and he still hit 292. So he's going to be a guy to really keep your eye on for sure, especially if this team continues to develop. Because Junior Caminero is a star in this league. We saw that in the WBC. He's a young stud who's probably going to get an extension as well. He's a young player. Caminero is only hitting 217. He'll pick up. He'll be fine. So that Cedric Mullins is he's maybe not Cedric Mullins is not a good example. Jonathan Aranda probably can hit around over 300. He's at 271 now, which is very good. But Chandler Simpson, you get Junior Caminero going, you get Aranda maybe hot at the right time. You got 4 elite hitters that are just going to play really well into what they want to do. And I said 4, and I mentioned 3. Who's that 4th guy? Yandy Diaz, the DH. Filling up that DH spot. A lot of teams like that spot open for versatility and days off. Not if you have a guy like Yandy Diaz, who can slug 20 home runs, and right now he's hitting 362 with a 450 on base percentage and a 1,000 OPS. He swings it. He's second on the team in home runs behind Aranda with 2, and he's a great bat to ball guy. I love the way he uses right field as a right-handed hitter, which means he's just so good at staying inside the ball and just kind of waiting for those breaks to find the barrel. And one thing Barry Bonds talked about was, instead of thinking of it as a bat, think of it as a glove. You're just trying to catch the barrel, which is, imagine it as the glove. Just catch the ball with the barrel and act like you're just playing catch. He's throwing the ball at you and just play catch with the barrel. Very easier said than done. Very easier said than done. That would not help me in the big leagues batter's box. But Yandy Diaz, I feel like, is doing exactly that with just his ability to put the ball in play and to fight off at-bats like that. But he's been spectacular. And the last guy I really want to highlight on this team is a pitcher, Drew Rasmussen. He's an arm that he went through TJ last year, so he was out, but he's still a stud. Like he had some good numbers prior to his season. He's at 30 years old, so he's a bit he's not a younger dude. But 2025 went through TJ, 2024 went through some injuries. 2023 same thing, but last year he had a 2.76 ERA. He's had an ERA below of 3 each year since 2021. Some of those years he hasn't played a lot, but he's been great when he's playing. And this year he's off to a tremendous start. 10 innings pitched, and he's only given up 2 earned runs, giving him a 1.8 ERA. And he's keeping the ball in the park. He's only got 2 solo home runs, 6 hits, and he's got the strikeout stuff. He's striking out 1 guy per inning. So he's a real threat on the base, or on the base. I'm used to talking about Chandler Simpson. On the mound. But he's like an ace for them. And not to mention, Shane McClanahan is pitching for the first time in his home ballpark in 2 years because of some elbow issues and then a shoulder injury that piled up, kept him out of baseball for 2 full seasons nearly. And he's back. Before he left, he was a guy who was considered the best left-handed pitcher in baseball. He's off to a little bit of a slow start, a 4.15 ERA through 8 2/3, but he'll figure it out. 7 walks. It's command issues, really, so I wouldn't panic too much on him. He's got 9 Ks through his 8 2/3, so the strikeout stuff's there. He just needs some time to kind of get his feet. He hasn't pitched in 2 years. Like, he went through some serious arm injuries. He'll be fine. But Drew Rasmussen, Shane McClanahan, those guys are a really nasty top of the duo, and paired with that top 5 that I was talking about with Jonathan Aranda, who could hit over 300 and have some pop maybe this year with 3 home runs already. Yandy Diaz is a batting title contender already with hitting 360. Chandler Simpson looks awesome and fast. You don't even blink. So there's just a lot of hype. And then Junior Caminero is off to a slow start, and he's gonna be awesome. So the Rays under 500. The stats don't. The record doesn't show it. How their calendar scores don't really show how much they're fighting, but their players are balling out. So those are my 3 teams I'm highlighting. That's going to do it for me on this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed this episode on some contract extensions, a little bit of a debate to begin the episode, talking paying 19-year-olds $140 million for the next 9 years. And then talking about some teams that aren't getting a ton of recognition. They're not the Yankees. They're not the Brewers. They're not the Phillies. They're not the Dodgers, who are supposed to win 90 games. They're supposed to probably win lower 70s, maybe less than 80. But they're coming out fighting. They've got some fun players too, where especially if you're trying to get into baseball, these guys are really fun to watch. So stay tuned for that. Be sure to check out The Rewind on either Amazon Music or Spotify. They could be listening to it right there. You're in the right spot. Fantastic. At The Rewind Podcast with Spencer Tracy is the best way to find it. Or on Instagram, where you can also get the visual version too, if you want to be able to see my face and some of the graphics that I have popping up on here. At The Rewind Podcast with Spencer Tracy or at The Rewind 3 are the best ways to find that. You can also find all of this stuff on Instagram too. I clip all of the big segments from my episodes and even post some fun graphics about some things along the way, like this kind of stuff that I was talking about today. All on the Instagram at @therewind_pod. It also tells you where to listen or watch all my stuff as well. It's the best way to do it. And of course, stay with me live reacting to games and stuff on Twitter at SpencerJTracy19 on Twitter. Tracy, no E in that. Again, all that stuff is on my Instagram channel. It's the best way. Appreciate all the support and listening. I'll be out next week